Welcome to Mendezville Live, where it's something to talk about. Here is Rudy Mendez.
What's going on, Mendezville? How's everybody doing out there? I hope everybody's having a good day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show today. I'm excited. I have a new guest. I'm excited to have this guest on. We're going to talk coaching, a little bit of California, stuff like that. But without no further ado, let's stop wasting time. Let's welcome to the show my man, Brian Rosario. He's here. What's going on, Brian? You doing all right?
Yes, sir. Rudy, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I want to say thank you for taking time out of your day, busy schedule. You're a college coach to come on the show with me.
Of course. Anything for a friend, man. You've been a real advocate, and you and I go way back, and so it's good to have some friends out there.
I'll tell you what, I had E-Rush on the show the other day.
I saw that, man, and we're basically, I would say, about 4 miles away from each other.
Really?
And we've only seen like one or two times, so we've made an effort to text back and forth. With all the soccer that's going on, we got to get together to watch some of those matches.
Oh, for sure. So wait, E-Rush coaches at what university, or is it high school now?
Cal State LA, and then he's doing a lot of the youth
club stuff. Yeah, kind of like me. It's plate is loaded. I have basketball, I have soccer, I have my coaching duties. So it's all jumbled up. The club stuff.
That's right.
So he's at Cal.
I should have done my head. I was on daddy duty here before the show, and
dude, you haven't aged one business. Last time I saw he's been what, 12 years, 10 years?
It's about that. I guess I left. I don't say the school anymore because I'm a rival now.
Oh, okay.
So we just say, the school down PCH.
Where we work together.
We work together. That's right. So I left in 2012. So it's been about that long.
When did I leave? I left when Luna was born, William's daughter. That was back in, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I always remember, though, when it's her birthday, that's how long it's been since I left LA. so it's pretty cool. I'm going to have William on the show. I invited him today. I said, hey, tune in, watch B-roll, and we'll see what we want to talk baseball. You know how William's all about baseball, and he's coaching that stuff. So you're at what university now?
We could easily switch it to intramural softball for him, just.
Hey, it got intense. So for the public, the audience watching, what university do you work at right now? Currently?
Pepperdine University. So
I'll tell you what, though. I never went on campus when I was there, but I drove by it. You go up Malibu, the PCH, whatever. What a beautiful campus.
I tell you, it never gets old. We have 3 freshmen on who is our COVID class because they didn't get to visit. We couldn't do an official visit or anything like that. And we were talking to them the other day. They've been 2 weeks on campus, with summer training and all that. Okay. And they're like, that perspective of the ocean changes all the time and it never gets old, so it's definitely a blessing. That's for sure.
It's a great view. So you go to Pepperdine. We work together at that university. Is it okay if I say it?
Yeah, that you could say it.
So for the audience, especially for my local audience here in the RGV, I did an intramural coordinator back at, I don't remember the years, but I was at Loyola Marymount University where I met B-Row, and I'll tell you what, Brian, the staff, that's been one of my greatest experiences in working with where, the gym was right next to the rec center. Right. And we basically, it was always collaboration, and we worked together. Great times. I remember that bus party and all the parties and everything else that we did, the softball games, the flag football. I remember I still remember you going, and one of the huddles was, look, Rudy, we're going to run this play. Just throw me the ball. I'm like, okay.
I'm pretty sure that was the other way around. Like, I'm the point guard. I'm like, whatever Rudy says, I'm going to deliver a pass. And, I was always fearful of striking out, with you all, because I was lucky enough to just be, asked to be here. Here's a quick story. So we were playing, I don't know if it was like El Segundo or Torrance or, one of those leagues. And, I hit a line drive to just center field. It bounced a couple times. So I'm running as hard as I can. And I felt a pop in my hamstring. So as I was like circling second base, and I don't know if you remember, I called you in to pinch run. I go over to the dugout and I like feel myself black out because like the pain in my hamstring, and I'm like up against the gate. I'm like lowering myself down. No one knew. I kind of blacked out for I don't know. But then
none of us found out.
Dusted myself off, and I was like, did we get the win? Like, did Rudy score?
Man, I'll tell you, I don't remember that. Of course, you're going to remember a lot more because the pain and the hand. Everybody remembers the pull, their torn hand. Well, not
That's
torn,
right.
but the strained hand. Those hurt.
Yeah.
Those hurt. It's like a gunshot. Boom, sniper got you.
Quick. Yeah, that's right.
So you go to Pepperdine, beautiful campus. You're still an assistant, or you get the head coaching job?
No, so I was hired by Kristen Dowling, who we met. You know, she started her career at Pepperdine while I was down south. And, you know, we just became good friends, and she was hired 2 summers ago and, you know, wanted someone who understood the conference, understood building, you know, a culture and building programs, because that's kind of what I was a little known for with every stop that I've been at. And so she kind of tabbed me as the recruiting coordinator and assistant coach, and you know, we've been what I think is building a program out that represents the league and represents what, you know, the past champions have represented.
And at this point, you're still in the same role, or you're the head coach now?
No, same role.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what though, people, you know, some of my buddies, you know, from the state, they're like, college. I'm like, it's still a grind, isn't it? The recruiting and the games and all that. It's got to be tough.
So I'll start with the games. The games are the fun part, right? Like that's where, you know, you built this team out, you're training, you're making the adjustments depending on, you know, game to game situations. But then once the season ends, obviously you're going towards that championship, but once the season ends, it's a shift to recruiting, to off-season training, to ensuring that the environment that we're trying to create for our players are on point. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are going on that you really have to layer as opposed to compartmentalize. You know, I think, you know, in other jobs that I've had, I was able to kind of like, okay, here's my focus. I'm going to do this, and then I can get to the next thing. Whereas coaching, you know, it's kind of like all layered on top, like
you go
like
back and down.
Yeah. Because you're doing scouts as assistant coaches, you're recruiting as assistant coaches. I was in charge, or I'm in charge of like the recruiting coordinator part. So figuring out like who needs to travel where to see what kid at any given time. So, I mean, there's a lot of nuances and back office stuff that goes on, but I mean, it's why you do it. You know, it's for the opportunity to, you know, climb that ladder and cut the net.
No doubt. It's fun. I know my local, the high school that I work, I work at a junior high, the feeder school that, you know, the high school, they won their district title this year. And, you know, watching some of the kids that I got to coach cut that net down is pretty cool. You know, it's like, hey, you know what? You know, they were part of that program. And I do want to revisit, like, I'm talking about preseason, in season, you know, recruiting. I want to make sure we learn from you what my coaches here, my parents in the area want. They probably have a lot of questions. I want to try to ask as many as I can. But the main reason we're here is because of the TED Talk I heard you go give on. I saw it on YouTube, and I said, wait a minute, we're onto something, because that's something that I believe that we all need to strive for as coaches. So give us a background. You're on TED Talks. How do you get on TED Talks? And what was the main focus on your TED Talk?
Yeah, so my hometown, Oxnard, California, which is a small beach community, but it's really more known for the agriculture. So I'm sure if you guys go into your grocery stores and you see strawberries, it could be from Oxnard, California. That's what we're kind of known for. So a lot of farming is there. But I graduated at Santa Clara High School, and I've been fortunate enough that last year I was the graduation commencement speaker. And so I was able to kind of tie in, you know, this old guy coming back to deliver this address to all the new graduates, and a teacher that was in the audience heard it, and he brought a license, a TEDx license, and wanted to put on an event. And so we kind of connected, and, I thought I was just wanted to support the event just because TEDx being in Oxnard, I mean, that's huge. We're about 50 miles up the coast from LA. So it's far enough where, you could not know where it is, but it's close enough where, there's a lot of things that are happening, like a lot of movies and shows are filmed in Oxnard and whatnot. So we connected, and he was like, would you like to be part of it? We kind of want a local product. I love your message that you gave to our graduates. And so that's how it kind of started. And the theme was code switching. And, as we all are, kind of products of our parents first, but also products of, our interests. So sports for some, arts for others, science. And every one of those passions has its own clubs and just communities. So for me, it was, how do I relate code switching to what I'm most passionate about? And I've been so fortunate that, I'm going into my 19th year coaching college basketball.
Nice.
24 overall. So I've been around the game for a long time, but I was exposed by my dad, and I tell the story in that TED Talk that, he was able to afford the Clipper tickets, not the Lakers, not the Dodgers, those Clippers, and so, it's just an hour and a half down just with my dad, and he's exposing me to, some of the strategies that the game has. But what I realized was, he was my dad. So he was trying to just, give an experience to his son.
Right.
But that experience turned into a passion of mine. So, as a father figure, and I'm a parent of, a 4-year-old and a soon to be 2-year-old, I'm a boy dad. So, right. I want to do the same thing, but at some point, they're not seen as your kid, because what you're now trying to do is expose that passion, drive that passion to perhaps, a career, a profession. Right. And so what I wanted to really talk about is how important relationship building is as it relates to understanding those around you. So first, I think it was always trying to understand self, understand, the person next to you in the next locker, what their experiences were. But ultimately, talking about how culture, we talk about culture and it's always this stagnant phase or thing that we're trying to strive for, when culture is something that's always changing, and I try to make the point that, culture is going to change because the people in the room change. And so that was the talk. And it was an unreal experience. When I signed on, it's about a year-long prep. So really? Yeah. So, just getting the themes and trying to write your first draft, and you have all these practice sessions. Sorry, there's birds flying around. I'm outside, Southern California. I mean, this
beautiful weather.
This is prime time, you could just be outside, but
beautiful weather.
But you're meeting the team and things like that. Well, it was geared to be a typical TEDx event in front of an audience. Well, COVID hit. The pandemic forced us all inside, and so it became a virtual event. We were able to have some people in the audience, our family and friends, but right. I mean, it was definitely a surreal opportunity.
So, which is, I've always wondered when I hear TED Talk speakers, it's so smooth. I'm like, man, these people speak so smooth. But now that you say you have a year-long process, yeah, I'm sure, is there like a video, like what do you call those things where you kind of read a little bit? I'm assuming
teleprompter. Yeah,
teleprompter. There you go.
You were able to. I don't know what's up with that bird, so I don't know if you hear that, but that
I mean, it's not that much. Go ahead.
Even though it's a year-long thing, and we were just on a show today kind of highlighting our path and our experiences and all that. And one of the speakers was like, I have to write a script and memorize it. And then another speaker was like, don't give me a script, because that's when I mess up. I just want bullet points. So everyone has their own way of doing it. We did have someone use a teleprompter, which was fine. I mean, that's allowed type of thing, but there are some parameters that you had to stay within, 12 to 18 minutes. You couldn't go over 18 minutes like that. And that's from Ted. And you have to ensure that, if you're using PowerPoint, it's something that is just all encompassing, as opposed to, when you're in the classroom, you got here's part of the information, then you go here. Like it had to be an organized
the flow of it, make it nice and flow. Wasn't Josie on TED? Do you know anything about that?
No.
Josie Alquist, she used to work at LMU. I gotta reach out to her too. I think I seen her speak. Very good speaker, by the way. Very smart person. Yeah. So you go on TED Talks. We're talking about, before I forget, so the people that aren't from California, don't understand the beautiful weather, don't understand Oxnard, don't understand Pepperdine, Malibu, all that area. Oxnard, reference. Is that where the Cowboys go practice, or they used to go practice?
That's right.
On. So for all my Dallas Cowboy Nation, my man right here is where the Dallas Cowboys go train.
That's right.
I never went when they were out there. I always regretted that. I should have gone out more when I was out there. But it's expensive out there.
And that's something that I don't think anyone takes advantage of, right? Because initially the Cowboys always went out to Thousand Oaks, which is just about 20 miles south.
Ramen used to live out there, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Raiders were coming to Oxnard. But when the Raiders moved back to Oakland, then Jerry Jones was like, we're going to take those fields. And it was a perfect setup, and they've been there ever since. And I know Oxnard was a really good advocate to bring back or bring out the boys, because most of it's a very Latino Hispanic area, right? And so there's a lot of fans that were Dallas fans, and it's like
America's team.
Boys back. Bring the
America's
boys.
Team. They can go anywhere. Everybody loves them.
That's right.
Everybody hates them.
That's right. And that's the way you want it, right? Like that. If there's a lot of love and hate, you're probably doing something right.
I'll tell you. I was talking to my wife about this over lunch today, and in the area here, in my area, my district, and people in the surrounding area, they see me, and sometimes they don't even say, "What's up, Rudy?" or "Hey, Coach Mendez." Like, "Hey, what's up, Mendezville?" Right?
Oh, yeah.
So some people are watching the show. People are talking about it, and I learned this from my marketing professor back at UTSA. Was there's no such thing as good publicity and bad publicity. There's only publicity.
That's right.
So Dallas Cowboys, and I told all we have a ton of haters here and we call it the Rio Grande Valley. I say, it don't matter if you hate them, you're still a fan. You have to understand that you're invested in the team.
That's right.
But either way, enough of the tangent. Back to the coaching, back to TED Talks. So we talk about the culture. You talk about every time it changes. We're talking about how is your approach, especially you being a collegiate coach. I know at high school and junior high, mindset is a little bit different. What kind of mindsets do you deal with while you're there, and how are your approaches and some stories that you might share with us as coaches?
Well, I think no matter what, you have to define culture, right? Excuse me. But culture has to be defined as what are the decisions that group of people are making? Good, bad, or indifferent. That's the behavior. Those are the decisions. And so, excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's the first thing. What decisions do you want that group to make? What behaviors do you want them to have? If you don't define that, culture is just a word. And so whether you're high school, college, pro, GMs have to create a team that they're going to make the decisions for that team to win a championship.
You want to get some water, Brian?
No, I'm good. See, I get choked up. I'm so passionate about this.
Right. Don't worry.
No. And so whether you're a high school coach trying to create a culture, the behaviors, the decisions that you want to make, it's for that freshman who then becomes a sophomore, junior, and then a senior. Right. And what you're trying to instill is a culture that they are ready for college. And then for us as collegiate coaches,
as an athlete or as a student,
I think both, right? Because they are student athletes. And I do think you need to be able to compartmentalize your focus, but you should not compartmentalize identity, your emotions, your personality, and things like that. Like who I am on the court is probably who I am off the court. Now, I may be a little bit more rowdy off the court and a little bit more serious, but who I am does not change.
Right.
And so I think like our culture is a culture that we want to help these players and students become the best they can be on the court and in the classroom. But why? So that they can make the right decisions, be the right people after college. Because most of them don't play pro, right? And so I think part of culture and why it's important, and I think why coaches, your viewers, whether you're a coach or a parent, you should be interested in creating environments that whoever you're leading, they're going to make the right decisions. And I think if you get a group of people together making similar like-minded decisions, you're going to get a lot of graduates and a lot of champions.
It's interesting because those are very good comments. And see, my buddy, I was about to go that way. Me and my buddy here, we were talking about this earlier. And, a good buddy of mine, Kevin, I had him on the show. He played NCAA football. And we're talking about that earlier where we got to take care of the student as well, not just the athlete that plays football for you or just plays basketball for you. And you talk about behaviors. I know, where I was coaching PE, I just got promoted to another school, same high school. But we talk about where after every workout, after, whatever it is for the day, we take a good 5 minutes real quick to reevaluate what we did. One of the biggest questions was that we started instilling in our students was, did you compete today?
Yeah.
Did you compete today? And it's not about competing against your teammates. Did you compete against yourself? Did you push? Right. There's only one person you're competing against every single day, and that's you. Some other things we talk about is love the grind, get good grades. We talk about being on time. What are the things, challenges or things that you have in your culture at the collegiate level that you can kind of expand on?
Yeah, well, the biggest one is I'm going to start with basketball.
For sure.
Right? Everyone has a different experience. And what I'm going to share is why I was interested in the TED Talk, not so much delivering it, but what resonated with people after delivering it. Because we all have experiences, some good, some bad. And so when we go, so like you were promoted to a different location, right?
Right.
So the experience that you just had is going to change or adapt or solidify your next experience. Some people call it, well, they're bringing in baggage. Like that kid's bringing in baggage. No, they're bringing in experience. And to use a strong word, trauma affects us differently. We have good trauma, bad trauma. And so if an athlete has bad trauma, it's going to take you longer to open that kid up, tear down their walls, so that then they can be their true self for your true self. And I don't think a lot of people, so players or coaches, are patient enough at our level to do that. That's the first thing. The second thing is at like our institution and many institutions out there, the rigor of the classroom will affect the play on the court. And so if a student can't take the rigor, or if they're struggling with time management and trying to figure out, hey, I got to allocate some reading time here, it's going to affect how they perform on the court. So that balance matters at our level. And I think, part of building a culture, a positive culture, is ensuring that you have the leaders helping the newcomers, so that then when those newcomers do become leaders, they're doing the same thing, and that cycle continues. Even though the talent might change, the personalities might change, that whole process is helping evolve the culture as you move forward.
I see. So I guess would like social norms be a word we'd be using, like going to study hall, work? I mean, I wouldn't say getting up to lift weights, because I think the expectation is everybody goes to lift weights, correct?
Everyone goes where?
To go lift weights.
Yeah. So we have standards, right? Like, so
Right.
we are a year-round program. So what changes is the amount of hours we can work with a kid, but they're working out with us. They're developing as players. They're going to study hall to help them with the time management piece for the school part. They are lifting the weights. They are doing the conditioning. You know, they have a lot of things that they have to do to accomplish their aspirations, but as it relates to the standards that we instill. So, you know, if a player is struggling with a certain type of aspect of our game, whether it's offense or defense, you know, we're going to be able to help them through it, just like we would getting them a tutor if they're struggling through the academic piece.
Right. I guess my thing is, there comes a point where it's not as not macromanagers, kind of micromanaging in the sense that you give them that schedule and they got to stick with it.
That's right. And I don't know if it's micromanaging as opposed to setting a schedule, right? Because like,
I would have to agree. You're setting the schedule.
Yeah. As adults, I mean, if I don't have my morning right, my afternoon is not going to be very good, because if I skip some steps in the morning, I'll be flustered in the afternoon. Right.
Right.
So
is there, when you're talking about the culture and these behaviors and these settings, the schedules, are there like certain activities or certain things that you do throughout the year, student development meetings or not icebreakers, but the only reason I asked that is because actually my buddy, right now, the guy that commented was Ken Benoit. His brother was doing something at the former high school he had where he started focusing on bringing kids in on Saturdays where there was leadership development for these high school kids, which I thought was awesome, especially when I got here back to the Valley, back to my area, coming from LMU, coming from UTSA, coming from Indiana State, where that was part of our culture. Is we teach our staff and we have our meetings and we talk about leadership, expectations, time management, stuff like that. So do you have certain things that you go into train them like that, or is that, how does that work?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? Like, our philosophy is we are building leaders.
Correct.
They're either going to be good or they're going to be bad leaders, right? And that's reflective of us. Now, old school, if I were to say community service, what would you say a community service activity would be?
You go clean up the road, the side of the road.
That's right. Like, you're out into the community cleaning, like beach cleanups, things like that.
There you go.
You could be reading a book to a third grade class, things like that. Like, that's old school community service. We've kind of flipped the script a little bit, and we're calling ours it's leadership development, but community influence. Because if we don't help our members of our team learn how to reach out to nonprofits, how to connect with leaders, how to be mentored, and how to connect with, you know, the possibilities that they can add value to their own passions, then it's not going to be sustainable, right? So that's why we are teaching those things, so that the sustainability of giving back, like, that's the key word, giving back to the community, is what's sustainable. Reading to a third grade class, I believe, is a great activity, but is it sustainable? Right? Because that third grade class then becomes a fourth grade class. And are you moving up with them, or are you just continuing going to the third grade class? Yeah, and I think part of it is trying to develop the leaders through meetings, because we use basketball to develop the mind, the heart, and the soul of someone, but we have to teach them the real world of how they're going to use those things. So yes, it's not just teaching layups and how to pass, and it's not just going to study hall or film sessions and things like that. It goes deeper. I mean, we have a weekly conversation with each of our kids individually. And I believe this is where the magic happens, because of course it's going to start with, hey, so how was school today? Right.
Right. The typical.
Yeah. And if you're doing it on the board, and what do most kids say? Good. Yeah, because they're in a rush. They don't want to talk. Like, don't talk to me. That just like parents, right? Like, Dad, don't talk to me about this. So if we can teach them to have a conversation off the court where we're allocating a whole hour per week for them, they can go deeper. I'm struggling with this professor. Well, why? Well, they're from France and they have an accent and I'm not getting it clear. Then we can start problem solving. How do we get the grade that you're wanting with that adversity from the professor? Not bad adversity, just adversity of comprehension, right? And then we could talk about the team. Like, how are you living? I mean, you're from Texas. How are you being away from home? How's your parents? How's your brother? How's your sister? Hey, why don't you write a card to moms? Tell her that you care. Just thank her. That's it. Just thank you, Mom. See you at Christmas. Things like that. We can talk about the team. If they're struggling with someone on the team, we can help problem solve, like give them a high five after every run with them, type of thing. But we get to know them. And I think once you get to know someone, like I heard this quote from Tim Knight. Tim and Brian Knight have a great podcast called Focus 3, or a program called Focus 3. But they always say the depth of your criticism cannot exceed the depth of your relationship. Right?
Interesting.
So you got to build relationships so deep that you can be the critic, like a coach, right? Like, hey, we got to work on your game. But if I didn't work on that relationship, that player's going to think, man, come on, coach, you're just on me.
Right.
Or if we built a deep relationship, yet I'm not challenging them to that relationship, I'm cutting short, they're going to be like, why am I here? You're not coaching me up. So I think that goes a long way in the sense of how do you want to develop a child if you're a parent? How do you want to develop an athlete if you're a coach? You got to build the relationship so deep that you can have the real conversations when that kid needs it.
It's very interesting you mentioned that because, where was it? Was it yesterday? I'm going to golf. I'm on my way. I'm golfing. I'm going to go golf. And I called one of the high school coaches who, I have a good relationship with. And I said, hey, I have an idea. Check out my idea. And then I went live on Facebook and I posted it. It's about tracking students, right? From junior high to high school. Who shows up to for example, football? Who shows up to the 2 days? Who shows up the first week? Who's there right before the 6 weeks? Who's there afterwards? Who comes back after the fading grades? And you just continue and you track them freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. One, you track your numbers, and everybody wants to see what numbers. But then the questions arise is, so if a student stayed with it, why did you stay with it? Besides being one of the best athletes on the team or why did you quit? What factors? Bad coaching, or maybe not bad coaching, the relationship between the coaches. They were always on me. Cars, jobs, social economics, all these factors that come into play that I said, maybe I should pursue a doctorate in this and collect all this data. But number one is the relationship. I think if the kid trusts you, the child trusts you, they'll play for you.
Yeah.
Because I referee, I do a basketball officiating here in the area when I'm not coaching basketball for junior high. And I was there one time with one of my officials, but he's a high school coach. And he was applying to be the head coach at a high school. And, he was talking to us like, man, I had this interview and I'm all writing all these X's and O's and all this stuff and all this philosophy. How do I approach a game? How do I attack this defense? What kind of plays I run? What kind of defense I run? Against what offense? And then they asked me, and how do you build students?
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then I realized all my X's and O's didn't matter. It was about the student relationship and how do I take care of them to succeed in the classroom, to be leaders, and what are they going to do after they leave high school, whether it's college, trade school, work, whatever it may be. And it's very interesting you touch on that because I think we're onto something. And I think coaches that watch this show, parents that watch this show, students that watch this show, we're onto something. And I think we can grow from that as we go. On your coaching, now that let's talk. So we got that, and we'll continue as we go. Just I want to, because I do a lot of basketball, right? My main focus is basketball. When I got the job before, they told me, you're going to this school, you're going to develop the basketball program. You need to help the high school out. I'm like, well, I'm the guy to talk to, right? Even though there's a few other coaches that are pretty darn good, but so I do that. And most of the guys, one of the biggest issues, I had a lot of college guests here, but not, and I think E-Rush is the only other coach I've had. I think, no, well, college coach, I mean. E-Rush, you're the second, I believe. Can you give us, for parents, let's talk to the parents right now, what the schedule is in your recruitment? What do you look for talent-wise, character-wise, grade-wise, stuff like that?
So I often tell, I was a youth coach inside of there, coaching club and high school. And and with junior college, right? So like junior college and then youth, it's all about advocating for the next level, right? JUCO is then the 4-year, youth is for the high school, and then high school is for the college. So I always tell athletes, like, colleges or the next level, they aren't reaching out to you for one of two reasons. The first is you are not what they are looking for, which is out of your control.
It doesn't mean you're not good enough.
Yeah. Like if I'm looking for a 6'3" post player and you're 5'9", that ain't gonna work.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's out of your control. It's not like you could stretch, it's so quickly. But the other reason is they just don't know you're out there, which is in full control. So think about how many, just how many athletes there are, and then how limited spaces there are at the next level. Right. And so I think the first thing is, who are we looking for? What talents, what skill sets are we losing that we have to replace? The other thing that goes into it in terms of the skill and the talent is, where do we want to expand our style or expand our brand of basketball that the player who's leaving just didn't give us, right? So let's say we have a phenomenal shooter, handles the rock, but she's 5'9", and we're like, you know what? We want to get bigger defensively, so why don't we find someone who's great with the shot, great with the handle, but is 6'3", right? And so that's what forms first. Is okay. What is
needs of the team?
Needs of the team and needs of the direction of the program, right? Like when we were first hired, we were like, well, what style of play do we want to play, and ultimately, how do we match up with Gonzaga, with BYU? They're the cream of the crop right now, right? So how do we create advantages on the court against them? Well, Gonzaga has twins, 6'3", 6'4" twins down low. They have a guard who's about 5'11", 6 foot, stocky, who can score inside, outside.
Just to clarify, because if people are getting confused, what do you mean 6'4" post? You're a women's coach.
Women's coach. That's right. Yeah.
So people are confused right now.
Totally, little different, right? But in terms of just who they are, they're just bigger. They're longer. They're more athletic. And here, when we inherited our team, the average height on the perimeter was about 5'8". So we had to get bigger, right? Yeah. And so by year 3, this next year, this is the year that we've circled, our average height is going to be about 6'1" on the perimeter. So that's the gap we changed through recruiting, but also through kind of a need that we were trying to move towards. So it's always skill first, right? You're good enough or you're not, or you fit that mold or you don't, right? Okay. So that's the first thing. But then the bulk of what recruiting is getting to know that kid, getting to know the family. And for those families out there that think it's just about the kid, it's about you, because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? And so we have some parents we deal with. Yeah, and not bad. It's just you might be a crutch to your son or daughter, right? But we have a rubric that, so once the skill is set, then the bulk of what recruiting is really getting to know and building that relationship that we talked about. Well, what are we looking for? We're looking for high motor energy players who are just like, they can get places, right? We're looking for an attitude or an approach saying like, I want to continue getting better. I'm never satisfied. Coach me hard, coach me up, type of kid. We want mental, physical toughness. We want to be able to say, hey, we have a high IQ team. And IQ is not a number, right? Academically, it's a number. But to us, IQ is just experience. Like, how long have you been playing? How long have you been playing against top competition? We want competitors. Now, I know, E-Rush, your past guest, and I'm sure and I know it's the time, there's a lot of soccer, right? But we want competitors. Now, I know soccer can end with a tie, right? I get it. Don't get me wrong. But like with basketball, like we want those problem solvers. Like I hate when kids say, I hate to lose. Well, we all hate to lose or else we wouldn't be playing sports.
Right.
Right. So where's the kid that says, I need to win? Because the need to win is the problem solver. That's the kid who's like, man, my shot's not going down. All right, I'm gonna grab boards. I'm gonna free up a shot for this guy. I'm gonna, whatever that is. But then finally, the most important, which I think is the most difficult to judge and grade, it's the commitment of self, of their aspirations and vision, the commitment to our vision, the commitment to the team's aspirations and goals. So, I mean, those are the things that take the longest to judge. But that's what we're looking for. It doesn't take long to see talent. Like that,
right.
That's such a small portion.
You can watch that on a YouTube highlight film.
Yeah. And when you've been part of a league that you just know you have a database of players that you can say, like, that kid reminds me of so-and-so who did a really good job for X team.
Right.
It's going to fit our conference type of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that is just a small piece, but the bulk of the piece is really understanding, well, is mom or dad going to be the crazy guy in the stands? Are they going to be yelling, shoot it, when we don't want your daughter or son to shoot it? Right. Like
certain situations.
Yeah. And so it's just, I mean, it's a process, but those are the kind of the examples of what we look for. But at the same time, what we're kind of grading on, what we're evaluating.
Right. Which is, I mean, I totally understand it. Seeing that, I hung out with you guys. I was part of that. Not that I was in it, but from the outside looking in. But for a parent and a player, how do they get seen? Do they do a YouTube video? Do they go to these showcase tournaments? How does a student get seen?
So it goes back to the two things, right? So like if you're not being seen or you're not communicating, you got to get in contact with those coaches. So you can do it a couple different ways. You can play on a club team, right? Next month is a huge month for us to get out and evaluate a bunch of players playing the game at the same time, right? So that's the first thing. But
tournament. You're talking about high school tournaments right now.
High school tournament, club tournaments, things like that. Right. So that's the first thing that you can do.
Real quick, seeing that you just touched on club, we have a feeling that in the past 5 years, it's going more towards club teams than high school games. Is that the trend setting right now for as a collegiate coach?
So
more of those tournaments.
The simple answer is that's where we grade the best because you're playing against better competition, right? Like in high school, 20 points in San Antonio is different than 20 points in Missoula, Montana, right? Okay. Competition's different.
I see.
Whereas when you're going to AAU and club tournaments, you're playing against
everybody,
high-level teams. So like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour have their circuits where it's the top 32 teams battling it out for the championship that summer. And so think about the level of play that those kids are playing at that they might not be playing at the high school level, right? So summer for us, spring and summer for us is who is out there. We get to see so many players at one time, whereas when you're going to a high school game, you're only seeing two teams.
Right.
And so high school for us is more used to cultivate the relationship, cultivate, the evaluation, whereas summer club and AAU, that's where it matters. So like baseball, right? All the championships and travel teams that are happening right now, volleyball, soccer, basketball, I mean, the football camps, that's where you want to be seen early. And early is relative. Sometimes for a late bloomer, early is, coming out of your sophomore year, junior year. But for those prodigies and diaper dandies, sometimes it's being seen coming out of 8th grade, 9th grade, and just being part of the process longer.
Yeah, that's some great input, because right now it's, I'm the host, I'm asking you questions, but now I'm thinking as a parent, what am I going to do with my son or my daughters? Because I have 2 daughters and 1 boy. Is, my avenue is I'm pursuing soccer. My thing is, if they're going to be good, they're going to be good at soccer, right? Because I'm 5'8", my wife's 5'2". I think I was fairly quick, not super quick, but I was fairly quick. So if my daughters are fairly quick, they might have a shot at soccer. Because basketball, like you said, they're not going to be 6'2". They might barely. My daughter's probably going to be 5'2". So I'm thinking already. Okay, so I already know I have to go club soccer. E-Rush even said it. He goes, for those soccer parents, was, if your kid is good, forget college. By the age of 16, college is out the window. If you're at that level, you're going pro. You're going pro. Right now we're talking college, girls, basketball, collegiate recruiting. So you go to these tournaments, basketball IQ. We talk about that. I think that term gets thrown around here sometimes, where some people understand it, some people don't. Basketball IQ. When we talk about that, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So IQ is just how you handle yourself on the court. Are you someone who understands movement, understand angles? If you're a guard, can you collapse the defense in a way where you're not only creating a shot possibly for yourself, but for others? If you're a post player, are you able to attract and collapse the defense because you're able to drop step and score at the rim or draw fouls that guard defenders have to help down on you. Being able to understand concepts of plays and sets and so it's a lot of different things that define IQ. But think about it, like if you're a football coach, you want a quarterback with high IQ, someone who can kind of survey a lot of different things and make reads all at the same time. If you're a defensive coach, you want those linebackers to be able to read and assess the linemen. If you're baseball, the IQ of knowing, which pitch is coming versus, what it needs to look like to your swing. Soccer, I mean, obviously E-Rush talked about that. So that's kind of how we talk in terms of IQ with the game, basketball that is. But you don't have to have IQ, but IQ will come into effect if you're playing late in the tournament and playing those big games that IQ matters, right? Like smart teams win. I mean, on the women's side, you had Stanford winning simply because they were very smart at angles, the way they pass, but they complemented with a lot of athleticism and a lot of skill.
Right, but you gotta. I guess people need to understand that there comes a point where the talent is matched for the most part, and now you got to figure out, recognize what's going on in split seconds and make those decisions, because there comes a point where you're matched up talented for the most part, right? Late in the tournament or whatever it is. I remember you talking about somebody that hates losing and loves winning. There's a quote. I don't want to butcher it. It's, I hate losing more than I love winning. And I was like, wow, that was interesting. I still have mixed feelings about that one, but you still got to enjoy your wins.
Me too. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a great bumper sticker.
Yes, it is.
I don't think it's defined, right? It's like, what does it mean? Like you hate to lose and not, because I think you have to enjoy the wins to understand how to have a great self-awareness. But you have to hate to lose so that you always continue to get better and analyze why you lost so that those losses don't compound onto each other. So I think it's a great, like I said, bumper sticker, but I think it's got to go deeper.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
I saw it, and like I said, I still have mixed feelings on that one.
Yeah.
So I've had collegiate players here give us a rundown of their schedule. do me a favor, and I've always been intrigued by this.
Yeah.
So let me give you the backstory on this. So I'm at Indiana State, where I learned 4-game when we talked about it at LMU, right?
Yeah.
So I'm at Indiana State. My buddy Bernie says, we're there. It's my second year there, getting my master's, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go play basketball with the girls team? We're scout players, whatever." I'm like, "Sure, sounds like a great idea." And so I go there, and I forgot her name, redheaded coach, short hair. I forgot her name. I come in, I'm a little bit overweight at the time, and she goes,
"So it was after your freshman 15 year, right?"
Yeah, no, this was like I'm in 26. I think I was like 25, 26, whatever it was. It was like way past freshman 15, right? I'll tell you what though, I was a lot slimmer at LMU than when I was at Indiana State. But so I go in there and I was like, "Yeah, coach, Rudy's interested. Oh, hello, nice to meet you." She goes, "Can you shoot?" I go, "Coach, I can shoot. I'm not saying I can make him, but I can shoot." Hey, she goes, "Hey, you know what? Sign him up. I like him already." But I had to. I went like twice to go fill out paperwork, whatever it was. I'm in the coach's office, and they have all these whiteboards, different sets, different notes. What is the coach's day like? Fall, season, spring. What does that look like? Because we already talked about the tournaments in the summer. Give us a rundown on what the coach's life.
Yeah, so I always like to start in the spring, right? Because I think the spring, it starts the next season. And like what we were telling our kids this spring is, this particular team will only be together for like 200 some days, right?
Okay.
Because the spring is all the returners. The newcomers don't come until the summer. And so the whole team's not together until the summer, but you're not together for 365 days because March comes and now the seniors are out and then the process resets itself. So I like to start at the end of season because, after 2, 3, 4 weeks off where coaches are able to reset, players are able to reset, that's kind of the beginning of that next cycle, right? So when we end our tournament in Vegas, if we're not making the tournament, if we didn't win, if we lost, I like personally to take some time off. So most coaches take some time off, decompress. Some will start, analyzing the season so that when staffs come together, you have something to talk about. But the spring is kind of geared for those returners. So we go we go 8 hours with them, 4 hours on the court, 4 hours in the weight room. So our day is a little bit more relaxed because, like in the spring, we were practicing 3 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Tuesday, Thursdays become kind of relaxed. But
did you just say you spent 4 hours in the weight room?
4 hours in the weight room and then a week, not day.
A week.
Yeah. So 4 hours a week in the weight room, 4 hours on the court a week. So they get 8 hours a week with us and basketball. So
time out. So for my high school athletes and my junior high athletes, you're an NCAA coach, girls, female, women's coach, and they're lifting weights. So we're clear. Everybody's watching this show. My students watching this show, you are lifting weights. The athletes are lifting weights.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, some high school students don't like lifting weights, Brian. So that's why I'm stopping right now to emphasize that we lift weights across the nation when you're in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Weights is such an important aspect in general because yes, it gets you strong, right? You're able to perform, but it prepares you for any adversity, right? Like I might be 5'9", but I might have to guard a 6 foot guard, right? Like I got to go up against that. But I think the biggest thing that the weight room creates is one, camaraderie with the team. Like when you're we were just in the weight room and one of our kids was maxing out and I started like filming, and what was happening was our strength coach was like, "Come on, Jayla, you got this. Come on, one more." And all of a sudden, like my picture turned into like I had to lift the picture up or the camera up because then the whole team's around Jayla pumping her up. And so, I loved what The Rock says, banging and clanging, right? Like banging and clanging is happening, but what you see is the team supporting greatness on an individual basis. Right.
Like that.
So that's the first thing. But the second thing, I think it adds confidence that if you can push, new weight up or with the squat or whatnot,
right,
you can leverage that strength onto the court. So, obviously that's a basketball talk. You can do it on the field. You could do it on
everywhere.
Wherever. But
you gotta lift weights.
Yeah, I think those are the two magic things: is camaraderie with the team, and then the confidence on an individual basis that you can apply that onto the field of play. So, go ahead.
Stronger.
No, totally.
Yeah.
And so in the off season we have the 8 hours. In season it goes to 20 hours a week. So we're lifting probably 4 times a week for about an hour, and then 15, 16 hours are on the court per week. So talk about your day, right? So in the spring, summer, fall, we're probably meeting not daily anymore. We're probably meeting only on the days that we're working out. Sometimes we'll do some, kind of these meetings with the players, in terms of, leadership. It could be for classes, things like that. So it's very limited, but we know it's the off season. So a lot of our day is filled with recruiting calls to coaches, calls to parents, calls to kids. And then once season starts, our typical day is, so I'll get into the office around 10 a.m. or so. We'll have a staff meeting around 11. I'll do some recruiting calls from like 12 to about 2:30. That's when our kids are in the weight room, 2:30 until about 3:30. And then we're on the court 3:30 to 6:30. And then, within some of those days, I'm scheduling those academic individual meetings with our kids. And then evenings become obviously daddy duty once I get home. Once the kids go to sleep, sometimes I'm watching film, finishing scouts. So, I mean, it's a lot of just moving parts during the day. But in the off season, like I'll get into the office at 11 because I'll still have my morning routine, but I may add a workout before going in, do a lot of recruiting stuff in the mornings, and then, an afternoon session 3 times a week for about an hour 20.
I see. So when you talk about recruiting calls as a parent, what does a parent need to know about? When can I call you? When can you call me? How does that work?
So with women's basketball, it's like baseball, where you can't communicate with a family, so the player or the parent. Like I can't make outgoing calls until September 1 of their junior year. Most sports, it's June coming out of your sophomore year when that first call can happen. But we can talk to incoming calls. So if an underage kid calls us, we can take that. If an underage kid comes to campus, we can talk and show them around.
Any time of the year.
Pretty much any time of the year, except for some of the periods that we just can't. Like women's basketball has a few shutdown periods where no recruiting's going on. So like coaches can like decompress and allocate to their families and things like that. If we're out recruiting in July, we can't talk to kids or have them on campus during those evaluation periods.
By rule, but that's a rule.
Yeah, NCAA rules. So I mean, there's a lot of leeway for conversations, but there are strict dates and times that you either can or cannot based on, the age of the kid and kind of what we're doing within our recruiting calendar.
So let's say I have a freshman. Freshman's about 5'8", 5'9". And I tell my buddy, hey, you know what? I got a buddy of mine. Call him up. He's in California. He's at Pepperdine. He can call you as long as it's not mostly July and some other dates.
Yeah, they can call, and any incoming call we can take.
You can take.
And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's when you can start building relationships with families.
Nice. So, and of course, I'm assuming. I guess one of the UTSA comes down here to the area. There, UTSA for me is about 4 hours north from here. I'm like right at the border, B-roll. Like we're talking about politics, illegal immigration. They're crossing the river. I'm like 2-3 minutes away. Like,
Where
it's
are
happening.
you?
I live in the Rio Grande Valley, which is down in McAllen, Texas, Mission, Texas, La Jolla, Texas. Like it's if I drive south for approximately 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. And that's because it's slow. I got to drive at 35 miles an hour. I'm approximately 5 to 7 miles from the river that borders the Mexican and American.
So what town is that? Like, is that Brownsville or is that?
Okay, so if you know where Brownsville is, I'm an hour west.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So so we're down here. So that's where I'm at. I forgot what my point was. You threw me on a tangent on that, answering that question. But so people down here, they make the phone call and we go from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the thing, like, if you are a student athlete that wants to play college or have aspirations to play college, it goes back to one of those 2 points, right? Like, you got to get in touch with coaches earlier than later because they won't know you're out there. I mean, especially
I remember where I was going with it. So UTSA comes down here. A coach tells me, first thing is they got to have a highlight film. They got to have a highlight film. YouTube, nowadays it's YouTube. Everybody can post it on YouTube. Yeah. And then from there, we want film on them. Is that kind of how it works? But then again, you still have the recruiting tournaments.
Yeah, you still have recruiting tournaments are certain times. So let's say, you're someone who is contacting colleges like in September. Most colleges will say, well, do you have any film from the summer? So you always look back one evaluation period. So if it's the fall, it's the summer tournaments. If it's the winter, it may be like fall leagues. If it's the spring, it's late games.
The most recent.
Yeah. So everyone wants to know, where are you currently at? And then from that point to the next period, you got to see growth.
I got you. Makes sense. So we talk about recruiting, we talk about character, we talk about leadership, we talk about behaviors, and I think one of my favorite quotes that I would always tell my students, and they make fun of me, but it was pretty cool because they made this paper donut, and there's UTSA, but in the back when I got it laminated, I brought it with me. It says the favorite quotes is love the grind. Let the mind take control of the body. When you're hurting and you're pushing, like, hey, just the muscles will do it. Just tell your mind you're going to do it. That's right. All this science stuff, I shoot at them. So that was pretty cool. At least I know I'm kind of getting into their mind and their understanding is now we talk about those things. Now let's talk about the players. Can you give us, I mean, I know from other shows, I've heard it from players. Now let's hear from the college coach. What does their day look like? Fall, season, and spring. And one interesting thing that I learned yesterday was I had a former student of mine. He worked with a strength and conditioning program at UTSA through his work study. Is something that we try to balance at the high school level is they were working out during season. Yeah. And I was like, what? People work out during season? So it's a fine balance. So walk us through that so some of the students that might watch this understand what a college student goes through.
Yeah. So no matter what, where in the season you are, you're always taking your classes, right? So summer, you're taking one
classes,
right? As opposed to 4 or 5 in the spring and fall semesters. So you always have those. Usually our practice slot does not change outside of a few hours. So meaning like at Pepperdine, volleyballs, men and women volleyball has the mornings, and then basketballs have the afternoons. And so like our time slot will either be at the 12:30 slot or the 3:30 slot. So if we are working out on the early slot, we're lifting after practice. If we are the late slot for practice, we're lifting before. So afternoons for us, now it's different for any program out there or any school. The afternoons for us are the athletic portion, which means the morning and the evenings you are either taking classes or studying for classes or you're doing rehab in the training room, or you're doing stuff. Like, it's not like you're just sleeping until noon and then rolling out of bed and going to practice. I mean, we're not pros yet, right?
Right.
When I was at the school down south, we practiced at 6 a.m. So 6, we're on the court, we're lifting afterwards, and then the whole late morning, afternoon, evening is just school. When I was at Cornell, we could only practice 4:30 to 7:30. So our players were in class all day, and then their evening, late evening became practice.
So let me ask you,
it's
seeing that
different.
you're in those three systems, is there one that you prefer, or does it make a difference?
I love morning workouts. I think there's nothing better.
Practice or lifting weights?
Both. Okay. I think for a coach or a student athlete to be able to roll out of bed and get a workout in, whether that's a workout on the court, workout in the weight room, or both back to back, and then have your day, is the greatest thing you can do, just simply because literally by 10:30, 11 o'clock, you've done more in your day than most people, right? You start your mind with an oxygen level that's so great that because of the endurance that you're working on, that you're gonna be great in those classes. Now you may hit the wall around 4:30, but that would be normal.
You're done,
right?
but by that time you're done.
You're done. Yeah, everything's done. And so you could really enjoy your evenings, and every night you go to bed knowing that you're gonna wake up an athlete.
Yeah.
You don't have to segment your day.
I spoke about that yesterday, and I'm trying. I don't know what I have to do, or if it's a norm down here, or in the state of Texas, or across the nation. I know at the high schools it's normal for most athletic periods to be the first period of the day. I wish either 8th grade or 7th grade, because that's where I'm at, was the first period of the day. Like, we're starting and we're working out and we're pushing our body. You get those endorphins, all that good stuff in the brain. And now when you go to the classroom, you're wide awake, get to it. But of course, that's just me. I got to find more research, science-based, so that way when I present it to the schedulers, be like, look, I think it'd be best for us, for all these tests that we have to take here in the state, for that reason. So you start off your day with that. You've been in different situations. So your day as an athlete, fall. So in season, are you still working out, or is it the same in the fall and the spring, in the season?
Yeah, so like in the fall, and then through our preseason, so like non-conference, we're lifting 4 times a week. And then once we get into that early December, we might taper back to 3. And then by the time it's January, February, we might be in the weight room pushing weight twice a week. But in the third day, we're kind of doing yoga or stretching or something like that. But it's year round. I mean, at the college level, I mean, you are talk about, accepting the grind. You're grinding out annually, like all year long, and it's just a cycle. And so you see freshmen, kind of failing early in their career because they're like, whoa, what cycle is this type of thing, right? More games, more practices, longer practices, and then it's year round. And then all of a sudden you start seeing sophomore, junior, senior, they're just like, they're sharp because they mastered that cycle and they kind of understand what they need to do.
It's interesting you touch that. So what can we as high school coaches do to where the freshmen don't go through that?
Well, I think the earlier you can talk about it and expose them, the better, right? I mean, that and that's the thing. Like you mentioned that there's some athletes that just don't like lifting weights. Well, guess what? If they are an incoming freshman with someone from a high school that did lift weights, they're always going to be behind this kid, right? And so the exposure to simulate where you want to play, where meaning level you want to play at, the sooner you can expose that, I think the better, because then there's going to be, kind of a memory and just preparation. And I like saying, kids don't know until they know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Until
you
they're
can't blame them for not knowing if no one told them. And so if you're the coach that can expose them, hey, here's how college needs to be. Here's how college conversations need to happen. Here's what you need to do in this situation of the game, whether it's soccer, baseball, football, basketball. Here's what, like if you start teaching them that stuff, then it's not new. It's not so shocking to their system. And they're able to really perform at the level that they're at, like perform as a high level freshman. And then by the time you're a senior, you're going to be performing at a high level senior level.
Makes sense. Let me shoot this at you, and then I'll ask you the question. And we go from I've learned as a junior high coach to every year, the way we talk about different personalities, they're new. I had seventh grade that don't know the game of football. I got seventh grade that don't know the game of basketball because I coach, multiple sports after school. So I've learned towards like, hey, wait a minute, they don't know. Your eighth graders last year, they knew because they were there sixth grade, seventh grade. By eighth grade, they caught on. But now it's seventh grade again, they don't know. So what I started using is, and even with my daughter, 7U and 5U, my boy, is timeout, learning moment, teaching moment. We don't know this vocabulary. Let me explain, right? So I go through that. I go through that in seventh and eighth grade as well. Learning moment. And I tell them, there's a learning moment. Let's pay attention. What are the kinds of things that there's learning moments or that freshmen don't know that are kind of common when you see them coming in the game of basketball for the most part?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is speed and pace. Like high school. Yeah. I mean, like the rate that our kids can move up and down the court is impressive. Like our team can go baseline to baseline and back in about, guards are like 9 seconds. Post players are right around 11. And post players are being, they're 6'2" and, they're built. And so that's a moving pace. Whereas some high schools, they give them 12 seconds to go down and back or 15 seconds to go down. Back. So that's like in a running situation. But then there's a pace of play that just like, if you're not used to that.
Call a timeout. Coach, call a timeout. I'm tired.
We're calling the timeout. We're not calling it. There's no teaching moments like I need to stay alive type of thing. So like, I think that's the first thing. But then the second thing that kind of goes with it is what we call the transitional moments, right? So like in a high school, I'm saying typical, like I'm putting the middle. I know there's outliers, but the middle, like if someone's shooting, how quickly can they process? You talked about mind over body. How quickly can they process? I got to get into an offensive rebounding situation. And then then a rebound happens. And then I got to get on a defensive run. I got to play half court defense. Then there's a steal. I got to move to the offensive. So all those transitional moments need to be fast. And so when an 18-year-old is like having to go up against a 22-year-old, that's the difference you see. Pace and play, right? The speed. And then those transitional moments that starts up here that you see in body form, slowness and just the inability to kind of just process the game quickly.
I guess it's similar to what I'm going through right now with the eighth grade group that I have, that there's like 3 or 4 of them that are either JV or like 2 of them that are varsity they're going to be varsity ready. But the biggest thing I see when I do see them playing some of these tournaments here locally is that they're having trouble. The process of, I got to do this now. So I have one, makes a bad pass, and now he's stuck on the bad pass. Who cares about the bad pass? Hey, it happened. Now play defense or try to go get a steal. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that from high school to college. It happens from junior high to high school, freshman to varsity, whatever it may be, the different levels.
Because I think the way I guess it's the education system, but in terms of these levels, right? You got grade school from like I'm going to say kindergarten to like 5th grade or sometimes 4th grade, and then you have like 5th grade to 8th grades, like that junior high type section, Then you have 9th to 12th. So these segments are like 3 to 4 year segments. And think, I mean, that's like 1,200 plus days that someone has in learning over that rookie.
It makes a difference.
Right? Newcomer. And it's a total difference. And talk about like win the day, 1% better, and all those coined phrases. If you're doing that every day for 1,200 plus days, of course you're going to be more experienced. So you may not see it from newcomer to sophomore year, but you definitely see it from newcomer to senior.
Right. Yeah.
That's high school and then also junior high and so on.
Right. It's a 6th grader versus an 8th grader, an 8th grader versus a junior senior,
That's
a
right.
junior senior versus a freshman versus the junior senior in college. Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you're coming in. Some kids come in as 17, and then you have a 5th year senior at 23. Like you're a teenager going up against a young woman.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some difference there.
Do you see, now that you touched that, there's a big not controversy, but a debate here in the area, and I guess I don't know if it's in California or around sports, is the hold back where parents are holding their kids back. Do you see that in women's sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see it. I think male sports started it simply because you had that, the prep year and some of that, and then but I do think, women, females in general, it's out there in documents and things like that. They're more mature, and
I see it with my kids.
They may not want to slow down at that point, but I think certain parents may see that, okay, my daughter might, emotionally need an extra year. Maybe it's physically, maybe because the age cut off. And like, I think there's all those reasons.
The time of year they're born, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's all those reasons, but I think that there's a time and place to do it. Because of the maturity level once they become, 14, 15, 16, that they may not be I think males are driven to do it because of opportunity, but women it's not about that. It's about the connectivity to what they're doing at any given time. Like when I was a JUCO coach, a lot of those parents did not want their daughters going to a junior college, because they thought they were better than that, but they weren't looking at it as an athletic decision. They were looking at it as a educational standpoint or status.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing with JUCO, is that JUCO, you hear that and it's like it's an opportunity.
Yeah,
it's an opportunity you got to take.
I mean, it's the most natural reclassification, right? Because you might be the class of 21 graduating, but if you go junior college, you now get to be the class of 23 trying to get to a 4-year. So you have really 2 opportunities to become a collegiate player, one right out of high school or one right out of JUCO.
I see. Interesting. I think that still goes up in the air, and a lot of conversations with JUCO and 4-year and all these things. I know right now we have one of our former students. He's playing JUCO. He just got accepted, and soccer player, real good soccer player. Some pro teams were looking at him his sophomore year in high school. He goes to college, plays JUCO. Now he's going to go to a 4-year, so that's pretty cool for him.
Yeah. So and I think there's certain sports that is baseball, because you can leave in high school, but if you go to a 4-year, you got to stay until year 3, right? So that's why you see a lot of baseball guys, if they don't get that call out of high school, they go JUCO, because they can leave after the 1st or 2nd year and go pro. So there's certain sports that there's a benefit going JUCO.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that, but baseball JUCO. Because baseball's big here in my area. Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So you You mentioned, oh man, I forgot, I lost my train of thought with that JUCO, man. It's so when it comes to parents, students, I guess we're kind of wrapping it up now. Is what kind of messages you give? Let's. I usually try to end it like this: is the parent, the student, the coach.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the student,
Mm.
right? I think the biggest thing is you got to understand that your parents are worried about you. They just want the best life for you. They want you to make the right decisions, and you're not an experienced soul yet. I mean, the decisions that I can make at 44 are very more clear than if I was making it at 16. And so I think you have to understand that, when you say, "Oh, mom, why are you asking me again?" It's because they care. And most adolescents aren't communicating with their parents in a way that is based on information. It's all based on annoyance.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so I would just try to challenge youth to create a partnership with your parent, like retrain yourself to see your parent as advisors and not as parents, because I think you can go further in life. And this is the most annoying bird, and he comes all the time around this time, so I apologize.
Oh, don't worry. Do you hear an echo by any chance?
No.
Okay, good. Keep going.
So I think that's the biggest thing for youth, right? Create that partnership. Now for parents, you got to understand adolescents are adolescents, and if you're a young adolescent, you want to create experiences for kids. Don't create decisions for kids, right? Like if you have a kid passionate about baseball, create the baseball experiences. That will either enhance a passion, or it will tell the player, you know what, I like the basketball. Create the basketball experiences. If it's later adolescent wise, you need to be there to support them, because if they are a later adolescent athlete, they are being coached, and they're being coached hard. So most likely they're going to need you to just put your arm around them and say, "Hey, tomorrow's a new day. Let's go get some ice cream."
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can show your little ones that, then they're going to be less likely to jump on this thing in the car and start scrolling, and just, as opposed to maybe leaving it in the bag and saying, thanks for coming, let's go get some ice cream. Yeah. Right. And then for coaches, I think you got to own your space. I think you have to understand that players, it is such a hard process going from high school to college and then through college. It is hard. It is one of the hardest things. If we think back about those years of our lives, like we were thinking like that one lost love was going to be the last love we've ever had, right? We were thinking like, right, like the bully down the street is going to like kill me, as opposed to, I think he just is trying to flex, Like I think like it's hard. So they're going through something, but in a process of recruiting, like they're comparing themselves. So you got to be truthful. You got to be honest. You got to eliminate I love the quote I saw that it's, "I'm going to tell you the truth so you can see through the lies." I love that, right? Like tell kids the truth. If they can't play a certain level, tell them, but tell them, here's what we're going to work on for this next level though.
Right.
And then, but also understand parents just want the best for their kid. So
always
a parent texting you or calling you, it doesn't mean anything except help me translate what you want to my child. That's all they're trying to do. Yeah. Right. And so be there for those two separate, but I think equal entities while you're teaching a game, teaching a sport, and teaching life lessons through those two. But But again, it goes back to kind of that TED Talk. You know, I think it comes down to the relationships and truly understanding why someone is. And I said this in it, whereas, you know, you got ego and pride. And the way I define ego and pride is who you are. It's what you made. Like, my dad is from Hawaii. I am proud of the Hawaiian culture. I'm proud of the Filipino blood that he is. My mom is Italian. English and Irish. I'm proud of those cultures. I'm proud of the environment my parents created for me. I'm a proud Saint from Santa Clara. I'm a proud Torero from San Diego. I'm proud of
Right.
who I am and what created me. My ego is all my accomplishments, like being able to coach at this level 19 years, being able to coach Division I for 15, being able, you know, like that's just what I've done. But
Right.
everyone has that mix, and they have to coexist. If they don't coexist, then you're separating who people are. Right. But because they coexist, you really got to treat everything you do with that person with the coexistence of the two.
Very, very good points, Brian. Very good points. I really appreciate that. Brian, thank you so much for the info. I really appreciate it. Hopefully some of the parents learn, some of the students learn. You know, it's always a journey on how to get to college, how college coaches think, how college players think, the lives. You know, we got to dig in, and thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
No, Rudy, thank you for, you know, obviously we've been friends for a while now, and definitely been keeping up. And I think this alone helps everything you just said, because I think if you can understand someone's story and why they think the way they do, and do it across the board, then you're going to become a people person, right? You're going to see trends and understand trends and ideas and just how people think and whatnot. So I think I love what you're doing. I love that you had E-Rush on, and if there's anyone that I can help you with, I think it's a great conversation that you can have. So definitely keep that up, buddy.
For sure. I'll shoot you a message if I think about something. Thank you so much, E-Rush. Thank you so much, Brian. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Peace. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my man, Brian Rosario, collegiate coach over at Pepperdine University. We go way back. I met him at Loyola Marymount. We talked about 4-game, you know, the different weights, different lifting, different athleticisms. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hopefully some of you tuned in, learned a little bit about the grind of what it takes to be a collegiate athlete. And we keep learning. We keep learning. That's what the show's all about when it comes to sports. Different experiences. You guys have a good night. Peace. See you later. Bye.